But I can say that the vaccines and the monoclonal antibody programs we're currently working on are progressing very, very well.
With the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Do you still have a link with them in terms of your work with Ology?
Actually, we do. Gates Foundation funds programs, and some of those programs that have been funded actually are currently in our facility. So we're a contract development and manufacturing organization. So we manufacture, scale up and manufacture other people's products. And a couple we have in now are actually funded indirectly by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
So what have Ology Biologics done over the past few months to join this fight against COVID-19? Are there any particularly promising early projects?
Well, you know, as I said, we're a contract development and manufacturing organization, and we assist our clients in scaling up and manufacturing in large quantities. And we do vaccines. We also do antibodies, recombinant proteins, and we can do them up to what's called BSL-3, Biosafety Level 3. We're the largest BSL-3 manufacturer in the United States. So as these are produced in bulk, then they go through formulation and filling. And currently, many of the programs are either in clinical studies or hoping to enter clinical studies fairly soon. We do keep client information confidential, but I can say that the vaccines and the monoclonal antibody programs we're currently working on are progressing very, very well.
Would you say that, taking into account that there are so many companies from all around the world working towards this same goal, there is a slightly greater chance that this vaccine maybe comes along a lot quicker than others? Or would you say people are actually being slightly bit too optimistic and need to kind of manage their expectations in terms of the speed of a vaccine coming to become readily available?
A great question. And if you look at the process from early development stage through clinical studies, through approval for a biologic or a pharmaceutical, I mean, this can take years and years. But it's unique that everyone globally understands the death rates, so the morbidity, the mortality associated with this. And so there's a lot of pressure on regulatory agencies to tighten timelines, to play the risk a little bit more. And with that, I think we can actually meet timelines that are much shorter than we ever have done in the past. And probably the lead right now may be Moderna in the United States with their mRNA vaccine. In China, there's a couple vaccines that definitely are fast track. In the UK, there's one that's fast track. One of these vaccines definitely are going to make that timeline, if not 2 or 3. But that doesn't mean that others stop. There'll be many different vaccines that'll be utilized for different groups. If you're immunosuppressed, you may not be able to use one type of approach, but yet another. If you're, I don't know, allergic to something in one, there'll be a second one. And there's no one that can produce all the doses that will be needed, not one manufacturer. So I think there's a lot of competition going on to get these clinical studies done. And obviously with the death rates every day going up globally, there's a strong need for this.
Do you get the sensation that especially governments are more conscious of what has happened, and if, as you say, that this could well happen again in the next few years with, say, an influenza pandemic, they would have had sufficient time to build more effective strategies to kind of mitigate the damage done?
It's tough to say whether they will or not. If you're the head of a government, there are so many other issues too. It's not only healthcare, it's education. There's all these sectors that compete all the time for funding and to be noticed. And so, it's going to be difficult to make those decisions. But I think that the communities won't forget quickly what happened and how devastating COVID-19 was. And since the government works obviously for their communities and their constituents, I think there'll be quite a bit of pressure for them to put the rung of healthcare and preventative healthcare at a higher place on the ladder of funding than it has been in the past.
You have recently been offered a huge grant from the Department of Defense, valued at $27.3 million. So following on from what you've just mentioned, do you think that this kind of funding, and indeed funding from venture capital, for example, do you think this is going to be seen as kind of a short to mid-term investment, or is it going to be something that we see continuing even after there are a few COVID-19 vaccines established?
I think that it will become part of the annual funding through, for example, the United States. Their budgets are annual. They may have longer term funding for some of these. A lot of times, though, this funding, as it goes through the system, gets diverted to pet projects and other things. I'm just hoping this doesn't get involved with some of the games that are played in politics, where money's earmarked for something as important as this, but maybe elected officials then start pushing the funding into their state or district as a way to show that they're supporting their slice of the pie or their constituents. Even going so far as favoring up to big donors. But they need to be very aware of how this money is spent, because we don't know what the future will bring, and all we could do is be as prepared as we possibly can. And so I think that money that's earmarked for planning for future pandemics or outbreaks like this should be protected as much as possible.